My name is Maz Jobrani. I was born in Tehran, Iran, and grew up in Northern California from the age of 6, and I currently live in Los Angeles. Growing up in California was pretty amazing. I mean, I was there since I was 6 years old. At first, I'm sure there were some getting used to, because coming from Iran to America, but I was only 6, so the good news is at the time it was just about finding friends. When you're young, you find friends pretty fast.
Your weather can't decide. It rains, it's sunny. It's rains, it's sunny.
I was first inspired to become a comedian because when I was around 10 years old, I started watching Eddie Murphy. He became very popular then, and I loved him and what he was doing, and I wanted to be like him. And then when I was 12, I did a play in school, and I fell in love with being on stage. So I thought, hey, I could do this maybe. But the problem was having immigrant parents. They kept telling me that I should be a lawyer or a doctor. And it wasn't until years later of kind of battling that voice in my head and realizing that you live one life when I finally decided that I would go for it professionally. And I decided that about 15, 16 years ago, and I've been going since. When I decided to become a comedian and an actor, I had done acting through high school. We had a great high school program. I'd continued to do some after high school, and I know that my mother at first was worried because I actually had gotten into a PhD program to get my PhD in political science, and I was going to become a professor, and I dropped out of that. And I know my mother was worried; she thought I'd lost my mind, I've always been pretty mature in my ways, and my mother at first said, well, you should have a backup program, have a backup plan, like at least learn to be a mechanic so you can fix cars, and I said, I don't want to fix cars. And finally, once I started doing what I'm doing, and I think once she saw some success can come with it, she came around, and now she's one of my biggest fans. So the parents come around. Do what you love doing. That's what I tell people. Do what you love doing. It's your life. Live your life.
You guys doing good down here? Down here? How you doing down here? Down here? Woo!
Yeah, being bicultural probably does give me some insights into American culture, because I get to look at American culture from a foreigner's eyes. Not as much my own eyes as much as maybe my parents' eyes. Because I would say I became Americanized, and a lot of the things I did were Americanized. However, I would see the struggles my parents would have with understanding the American way. I think being between the two cultures, you get to look at both cultures and see what's good and what's bad. It's great for analyzing and criticizing and and coming up with jokes. I think being bicultural helps.
You guys, congratulations. You were voted the happiest people in the world, the Danes. You read about that?
Well, I think that the good thing about being in the West is you have a lot of opportunities to do things that are different. If you were living in the country of your birth, sometimes there's not as many different career paths, maybe, let's say. I mean, that you still could be an actor, let's say, in Iran and other countries, but I think that there's more opportunity to get into acting, or let's say be an artist of some sort in the West. So my recommendation to people is, I know it's hard. I know that there's a lot of pressure from your parents to conform and live the life that they want you to live. But I can tell you, you will never feel happier in terms of just being free mentally, I think, than when you decide to take a chance and go for what it is that you really want to do. Whether for some people that might be becoming a lawyer or a doctor, I don't know. But if you're lucky enough to find what it is that you love doing, then I would say 100% go for it. Don't let anybody stop you. But do make sure you're serious about it. That doesn't mean, I don't want somebody to think, I want to be a rapper, and they've never rapped, they don't know anything about music, and they just decide they want to be a rapper. Well, it's not that easy. You really got to put in the time. Even for comedy, what I did, I always tell young people that want to be comedians, you really got to get on stage between 5 to 10 times a week for about 5 to 10 years before you really start getting good. So it's not a joke. You really got to be serious about it.
Danish, fantastic. Thank you for coming. She's legit. She's the real deal.
I don't consider myself a role model, because I think a role model is something that is a label that's thrown at you. I would never say, oh, I'm a role model, because then now I really got to watch what I say and what I do. I'm an artist, I'm a writer, I'm a performer, so I want to be able to talk about whatever I want to. So there might come a time when I'm talking about an issue that is not a very role model-y issue. So I don't like to take on that label of role model. That said, I think that one thing that I've done that hopefully other young immigrant kids are seeing is doing something different than what the normal career path is. So if that inspires young people to do what they want to do, then that's great. And I wouldn't say that's a role model. I would just say that's an inspiration to say, hey, wow, there's other ways to live your life.
Oh, you're a doctor. Oh, hi. Hello.
I mean, I am a big proponent of people learning about other people's cultures. I'm a big proponent of people traveling. I wish there were a mandatory program in American high schools that sent kids away either their junior year or senior year in high school, or at least your first year in college. I studied a year abroad in college myself when I spent my junior year in Italy, and it was one of the best years of my life. It opens your eyes to the world. And so I really do think it's very important to acquaint yourself with other cultures. I think it helps you appreciate what you have at home, and it helps you realize that there's a world out there.
You guys over there, we're going on whenever we want to show up and such. You said 8:15, that means 9 o'clock for sure. That's when we show up. 9 o'clock.